Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight in what you can do with all of this information. Today is kind of like a pseudo special show. We're not breaking down industry headlines, but what we are talking about is the topic that I have probably received about 88 DMs on in the last week, and that is, what should I do in 2023 for the freight market? What are we going to do with all this information? So that's what we're going to talk about. I got a special guest I'm going to bring on. We're going to break all of that stuff down here shortly. But before we do that, as always, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at VHub, you guys. VHubApp.com. Whether you're a broker, carrier, or shipper alike, we all need access to trailers at some point in time. And then especially for those small fleets that are out there, if you have a trailer in the shop, and with added repair times and everything else that's going on, you should never have to shut your operation down because your trailer's in the shop. And the best part about what they have is you guys get paid to move these trailers. All right. So with what they're working on right now, they got Glade Spring, Virginia to Delta, British Columbia. You get paid $18.50 to move that. That is on top of the revenue that you can get by loading out that trailer, you guys. And they also have West Valley City, Utah, going up to Calgary, Alberta. You get paid $15.50 to do that. And then they also just increased the price on this one as well. San Diego, California, going out to Houston, Texas. You get paid $1,200 to move that. That is on top of the revenue that you get by loading out that trailer, you guys. So hit them up, vhubapp.com. My friends Xavier Campos and Stacy Steen, they will be in the audience. Just do me a favor, hit them up. Let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. It just helps with all of this stuff. They help keep the neon light on, you guys, if I'm being completely honest with you. Dennis Everett, what's up, man? Hey, if you guys have any reefer freight out of South Dakota, hit up Dennis Everett. He's always looking for some solid, good paying freight, you guys. Whitney Young, good morning. Thanks for coming back in snowy Utah from 75-degree Atlanta on Friday. Sucks to be me. Whitney, you choose to live in Utah, though. Come on, man. What do you expect? April Maroney, good fucking morning to you as well. It is a great day, as always. Sunny Sharma, Orange Shirt Gang in the house. Chris Diaz, good fucking morning. Let's get it. Stace, good morning to you as well. All right, I'm going to bring my special guest on today. He's been on multiple times before. He is an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. I do have to put that out there because, you know, we're all Wisconsin fans on here. I'm just kidding. But anyways, I got my man Ken with DAT back on. Yeah, I know. OHIO. Hey, you know, dude, like we were talking, I'll admit this. From a college football perspective alone, I want Ohio State, Michigan national championship. I want it to happen.
Hey, I'm in. I mean, again, I told you I was at the game and left disappointed. And I'm telling you, I think if Ryan Day wins on New Year's Eve and beats TCU for a natty and loses to Michigan next year, he'll probably get fired. So, I mean, they were openly booing him 106,000 strong at the end of that debacle last month. Yeah. So we'll see. I think they're crazy. I think he's a great coach.
Yeah, but you know, man, the expectations at a program like Ohio State are clearly there. And shit, if you can't beat Michigan, man, like you're better off. I mean, I don't even want to say it, but like if you can't beat Michigan, there's no point in you being the head coach at Ohio State. I
mean, yeah, I don't know what they're putting in the milk up there in Michigan, but Harbaugh's got something figured out.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just like, you know, like as a Packers fan this year, what we have to look forward to is we've beaten the Bears twice and fuck the Bears. All right. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So even when we have a bad year, so it's like if Ohio State's having a down year, as long as they beat Michigan, everything will be all right.
So I'd rather go 11-1. I mean, there's my buddy who, you know, I had to like basically assign a grief counselor to on the ride home, said he'd rather go 1-11 with their only win being against the team up north. So I disagree with that. I enjoyed all 11 other wins. I was present for most of them, including the beatdown of your Badgers.
Oh, but, cool. Good talk, man. Good talk.
I'll take it. I'll take the 11 wins.
I'd rather have you at 1-11, but I understand where you're coming from on that. Brad Reinhardt, what's up, man? Good morning. Thanks for joining. David K. Good morning to you, Matt Fink. IO. Here we go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then April Maroney, she says IO as well. Cool.
IO.
Cool, guys. Chris Diaz says Miami Hurricanes. Matt Fink, I agree. Ken and I were talking about this before we started recording, and I think Luke Fickell's going to be huge for us. But Ken says if Ryan Day leaves for the NFL after next season, Luke Fickell's going to Ohio State. So, which I wouldn't be surprised by either.
I mean, we'll take him. I think Day's a great coach. I hope he stays.
But, I mean, you got to think, man. I know we were going to talk about the 2023 freight market here, you guys, but college football, Ken and I bond over college football. We trade. I haven't had a lot of subtle jabs this season to throw, but we text back and forth about college football, and we're both very passionate about our schools, to say the least.
Hey, if you can free up some tickets next year in Camp Randall, I'd love to come up because Ohio State's going to be playing there next year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think it'd be a great game. Let's put that on the calendar, Ken, and let's meet there for the game.
Yeah, because you're in Phoenix, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. I might go to I think it's like something used motor oil bowl or something Wisconsin's playing in this year. It's in Phoenix.
What did I text you? Is the Duracell battery bowl.
Yeah, it's something ridiculous. Oh man, it's gonna be interesting bowl season, to say the least.
I'm always and RIP Mike Leach, the Pirate. I was sad to hear the news.
Dude, Mike Leach is the ultimate football guy. His press conferences you could not beat them at all.
I agree. His breakdown of the Pac-10 mascots were like prime time. I recommend anyone to go check it out.
Yes, do that. Get out there and check that. Let's jump right in here, man. Welcome site, I guess. There was the biggest drop in fuel that I've seen in a long time here this week. Dropped 21 cents. It's down to $4.75 a gallon, which is still a slap in the face to anybody who's filling up their semis. But compared to where we were a few weeks ago, that's a welcome sight.
Yeah, no doubt. I couldn't be happier to see that for carriers, especially small owner operators. It'll be much needed relief. And rates have responded as we would expect, right? We've seen a nice little rally in spot rates for peak, and that's been very well received by carrier customers.
So are you, because, I try and do a daily lane breakdown when I do solo shows. I use DAT in my brokerage, all right? I use DAT
Thank you.
A lot, and I use your guys' rating tools as well. So anytime you guys hear me do a lane breakdown analysis for you guys, because one thing I like to implement, Ken, is teaching people how to read freight lane specifics, because, we can throw out a national average all we want, but what does that do to a lane that might be running above or below that? So for me, it's pulling the 90, 60, and 30-day freight lane history on it, and then showing the similarities that are out there. Because I really, in my career, most of the time, it's going to stay within like a 10-cent rate per mile difference over that. And that shows a healthy market for me personally on remaining pretty consistent with your bidding on that. Because that's going to, I think the last 90 days of a freight lane will show you what at least the next 60 are going to be within a couple of percentage points. In my history in bidding out the 3 truckloads that I've only moved in my career, that's what I've been able to to hold firm on that. So we use that a lot, and it is talking about, because you're able to identify the anomalies, like the spikes of like the holidays and stuff like that, because you can see over the last 7 days, like, hey, there was an 80 cent per mile spike in that. That is not normal compared to the last 90 days, and most people are going to pull in holiday rates and everything from that in peak season. So with all of that, like, how are you guys looking at what Q1 could possibly look like, as a whole?
So it's been, I was sweating a little bit getting into peak this year. It was a bit of a slow start. And I think it's a great use case for not being overly dramatic and reactionary, right? There was a lot of press written about the demise of peak, and we were going to see no elevated rates, and then it just arrived a little later than expected. So where we sit today, we're actually outperforming 17 and 18. If you look at the exact same day of the calendar year this year versus those 2 years in question, we're actually outperforming by a few cents. Nationally, we're up, 10 cents a mile, excluding fuel, over the course of peak. My sort of perspective, if you will, on it is that we'll will most likely give back those increases once return season slows down into mid-January, and it'll get pretty slow. I don't know that we'll give back more than what we gained, and that, I'm hoping, is where we find bottom. The data seems to point to that direction. My experience and the collective experience of the folks I work with point to produce season essentially ushering in the new upward spot rate cycle, if you will. So that's sort of what I'm focused on. Contract's a whole different story, just given how it lags spot. But if I was a player in the spot market, that's fully what I would expect over the next quarter and a half, 2 quarters.
Yeah, I'm very much aligned with you on that. Matt Fink does have a question for you. He needs you to confirm. DAT lineage is dial a truck. Is that?
Yeah, for the old Jubit's truck stop, our marketing team was actually out at the Jubit's truck stop in Portland, Oregon, yesterday, I think it was, handing out some swag and some things to the truckers out there. We're always doing what we can to support our truckers and our carrier customers. Yeah. So yeah, we have I think our company's 44, 45 years old. We started 2 years before trucking deregulated. So whatever that math works out to be, trucking deregulated in 78. So, or 80, we started in 78. So yeah, whatever the math is. So yeah, that is the origin. DAT, dial a truck.
Yeah, then that's so, to all of those who, what Matt's referring to is throwback brokers know why. You guys, it's not out, and I talk about this, I allude to this. It's not always about posting a load. It is dialing out. It is finding which carriers run specific lanes. So you don't have to go out to source a brand new carrier every single time. I think everybody wants that consistency in their book of business and everything. And, pulling out the old Rolodex. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it used to be a thing where there's a bunch of different phone numbers written out on little cards throughout there. And, you get out there and you find some freight and find some trucks and coverage that way. Louis, what's up, man? Rolling Dice Logistics is in the house. So I was talking with your counterpart, Dean, yesterday. His episode will be released here in a little bit. I always love talking to Dean because
he's the best.
Dude, that old school trucker mentality that he has, and he still owns a truck. He still operates that truck.
Grumpy Pete. Yep.
Yeah. And, we were talking about, the freight market next year, and I'm thinking I'm pretty much aligned with you. I don't know at what point next year. I don't know if it's going to be after Q2 or what, but a lot of the headlines are going to start reading contract tender rejections starting to rise. They're going to start rising around that time because the spot market is going to have a breath of air back into it. And there's going to be, again, it's always that where are you going to make more money? Are you going to make more money on the spot market, or are you going to make it more in contract? And that's why tender rejections have been so low this year, is because contracted rates were exponentially outperforming the spot market. And that will flip next year at some point in time, because all the data that I'm seeing out there is Q1 is going to be a normal performing Q1 where, like you said, after the returns push and everything else, it's going to dip for a little bit. But then produce season kicks in March, and then that's going to start the uptick of the year. And I think that's what is going to really lead into, I don't want to call, I can't say an overly strong market or anything like that, but I think there will be a balance. The inflection point will be reached at some point next year, where brokers and carriers will start rejecting their contracted loads because there's an opportunity to make more money out there in the spot market with them. Yeah,
I agree. I would caution some of those sources are incredibly narrowly focused on a very small subset of the industry, right? Which, are most likely very retail focused given what we see out there. So I would diversify where you're getting your information, because some of that is going to be very sensitive to a very small part of the total picture. But yeah, that's exactly how the mechanics of this work. And people who have been doing it long enough know that that's what happens, right? As contract tender acceptance increases, it's less spillover into the spot market, which takes demand out. It puts trucks out of business or puts them back onto leased fleets, which reduces capacity, which makes spot rates go up. As spot rates go up, as you alluded to, more carriers reject and choose the spot market, which increases spot rates. As contract rates go up, it makes it more lucrative. That's the cycle. Yeah. And that cycle is very much pointing towards what we talked about, the 23 being a transitional year back to somewhat of a normal. I think we'll start pointing towards the new cycle in 23, but my guess is for both spot and contract to normalize, you're probably looking much closer to the end of the year, just given where current contracts are being executed, right? Contract rates are a function of the spot environment when the contract rates are procured, and they're being procured in a rather depressed spot environment right now. So my guess is that 3, 6, 9, 12 months, whatever your contract terms are, those will have to play out through most of 23 before we see a real revision in contract rates next year.
Yeah, I think it'll be telling, though, depending on how aggressive people go in and bid, because if this is back in a normal freight cycle, which, I've just, based off of my experience, I think we're in. I think people are going to go in and bid hyper aggressive for Q1. They're going to bid hyper aggressive because they're going to go out there and spray for volume, and that's all that they're going to be concerned about. And then at some point, when that inflect, like depending on how long their customers' RFP cycles are, like the smart customers, the overly intelligent customers are running probably 3 and 6 month RFPs, knowing this, because they're going to make up on the front end, and then they're going to probably expect an increase in rates on the back half of that. But for those of you who are going in and bidding for a 12-month RFP, and your plan is to go aggressive, you might want to think a little bit harder about your approach with that, because I don't think that, because it seems like some people are saying that the market's going to be down all year next year. It's going to be down, and everything else that's going on, the sky has fallen again, and that's what they're rolling with.
Well, I guess that same source of information would tell you that rates are going to go down forever until they aren't going to anymore, and then they're going to go up forever, right? There's always a constant state of extreme, right? Rates are either going like this or they're going like this, and they're never sort of behaving in a normal way. I would tell you that this is the number one question we get coming into our analytics shop is, I know there are less sophisticated brokers and carriers out there locking in at market lows. I also know there's no way they can honor those rates when the market improves in the late spring, early summer. I need help convincing my shipper that they're going to abandon you when the rates flip. And I think the best advice I can give is just negotiate a shorter contract length with your shipper, as you described. Say, look, I'll go down to their level of rates, but I'm only going to lock in for 6 months because I know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen on the other side of the next 6 months. And we're not willing to put a 1-year contract in and sort of enter into it knowing we can't honor it on the backside.
Yeah. And a lot of my customers that I've spoken with, and a lot of my customers who are in my network of people that I talk to, they've kind of all went to the shorter RFP cycle for next year, not knowing. And it seems like it's a lot more common because, it used to be 12 months or 24. Back when I first started, it was 24 months for a little bit there. But I think that the normal way of doing it, and again, especially with technology that's out there in the market, is you don't need to run a 12-month RFP anymore. You can literally do quarterly RFPs and get them processed just as fast with some of the technology that's out there. Shout out to Emerge. They got a phenomenal RFP tool if you are a shipper. But it's, again, I think that the best way to prepare for anything, especially in the market that we're coming in, because a lot of people who are in here right now have never seen a dip. All right. They've never seen a dip. They don't know what it's going to look like. But, facts of the matter are, yes, I understand that there has to be a national average. I personally hate it. I don't think most people should pay attention to what the overall national average is, because there is so much differing information that's out there on a lane by lane basis. And, with 97% of this industry being small business, you can't make your decisions based off of what the national average is running, because there's plenty of freight that moves at well above national average levels that are thrown out there. And that's why you need to deploy a solid sales strategy for next year. Most people,
50% of it, right? If it's normally distributed, 50% of freight will move more expensive than the average, and 50% will move less expensive.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing moves at the average.
Yeah, no, exactly. But a lot of people base their decisions on that. It's just like a lot of people base decisions on headlines that they read too.
Yeah. Some jabroni on Twitter saying the market's going to crash heading into Christmas, right? What do you make of that?
Yeah.
Man, I think I like national. I'll disagree with you a little bit, right? So I think once you've gotten over the hump, once you've gotten your sale, if you are your typical broker, right? You graduate, you maybe did an internship program, you get your desk, you're on stipend for, depending on your brokerage, 3 to 6 months, and then you move on to full commission and you're out there on your own. Once you've made it through that first year, then I think it's interesting and prudent for you to start thinking about the macro freight trends, right? I think it helps you in your conversations with shippers, helping them understand if they're unaware where we are in a given cycle can be value add that you can provide to your shipper. So I think it has value, but I do agree with you that it can be dangerous if misinterpreted or misappropriated.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very true, man. And there's a lot of that out there. I see a lot of people offering up advice right now that have clearly never seen a downturn. They've only seen the peaks of these markets, and they're putting a lot of information out there that for the brokers the providers who've seen this before are idly waiting, because like we know what's going to happen with that mentality that's coming through. But like you guys, I'm trying to stress this more than ever right now is how you've operated over these last 24 months. Throw it out the window. All right. The sales cycle that you are about to go in isn't harder. This is just what it takes to bring on business, you guys. You don't just call a couple of people and then with there being an absolute panic of capacity like there has been, they just added you in. And I see that that's probably the second question that I get all the time is how do I find new shippers? Well, first off, back to what Matt Fink was saying, that old thing, pick up your ATM, AKA your phone here and start dialing. But outside of that, you guys, you need to be hyper-focused in what you're prospecting. That spray and pray mentality of I'm just going to call people for the sake of calling them and hope they add me, that is not going to work anymore. You need to be hyper-focused. This is why I stress on niche-based selling. And then especially if, again, back to the macro point of what Ken's talking about, the reality of where our country is right now in a recessionary period that we're operating in, you got to look at if you're going to go after and prospect certain customers, what are your necessities? What are people going to buy no matter what? I hope people buy deodorant still and toothpaste and all that shit for the most part, depending on what part of the country you're in. But I understand, like, if you're going to go out there and prospect, like those goods are where you go because like the discretionary spending is going to be scaled back for a lot of Americans here. So if you're only going after those style of manufacturers, you're going to have a lot harder time converting because their volumes are going to be non-existent. Their volumes are going to essentially be committed to all of their incumbents that have been in their network for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to Samantha Jones about this previously on her podcast this morning. The average tenure in the brokerage industry is under a year. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you think about it, most people have actually not seen. And, she was very right to point out that like a lot of times I'll start with, if you remember back in 17, whenever blah, 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 blah happened, and they're like, no, I was a sophomore in college. I don't remember that. Yeah. I remember doing keg stands and eating Taco Bell. That's about it. And, I was very lucky. I sort of cut my teeth in freight where Roadway used to be headquartered. So I had a lot of folks around that were able to teach me what happened in 2007 or what happened in 1997 and how that impacted the freight markets. So, fast tracking as much knowledge as you're able to distill because, I said it 5 times already today, but I'll say it again. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. There are going to be environments like COVID again. And it might not be nationwide. It might be tropical weather. Or it might be a port strike. But we've dealt with these things before. And we'll deal with them again. And they'll have a very similar impact on a given freight market. But you're not going to have shippers lining up to give you freight like you have the last 2.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. Unless you're like me and know how to actually sell your services that are out there, because you guys, at the end of the day, you better be committed to a 6 to an 8 month sales cycle with a lot of prospects, because there's just no need. And then again, you always got to ask yourself, like, what value are you bringing to it? My man Mitch Wilbert, he's the founder of Unicron Logistics, my former employer, and he's one of my best friends. I appreciate this. I didn't pay him to say this, but he says, I was coming in with sound advice and experience, good stuff for the new reps and brokers to hear. Mitch has been in the industry for 15 years. He's seen everything that's gone out there as well. And it's about preparing yourself more than ever to this, because again, when you get fast results out there, like this is literally, this is why you need to invest in technology. This is why you need to invest in data sources that are out there. I rely heavily on DAT. No, I'm not paid by DAT to say this. I just have literally used them so much in my career, and the analytics that are out there at your disposal, you need to learn how to use these tools, you guys, because like everything that I'm going to be deploying at Freight Coach Logistics over the next 12 months is I put it all out there, you guys. Like I don't hold anything back. Everything I talk about out here, I apply myself. All right. I'm literally trying to help you guys through what we are going to experience here from a sales perspective. And that's what we need to be focused on, is utilizing this information that's at your disposal. Information is at a plenty out there, good and bad. Like that's the gift and the curse of a lot of the shit that's out there, Ken, is there's some people who give bad advice on what to do. And I just rest assured on the fact that freight's always going to be moving, like freight's going to be moving, and there's an opportunity if freight's moving. How are you going to be positioned if once that opportunity meets you though?
I mean, the margin of error was really, really wide through COVID. I mean, you could price the lane wrong by 10% and still make 20% margin as a broker and not piss off your shipper and not blow up a relationship with your carrier and be just fine. Did we necessarily maximize all of the commercial potential we had during COVID? No, probably not. But that's all right because everyone except the shippers were happy. Now, this is going to be an environment where you have to get sharper. Like one of the things that I noted going through my, the first 2 years of that COVID pandemic was people can't let their sense about them of how these markets work atrophy, right? It is harder to price certain lanes than others. It's not a given that you're going to have the phone ring on your sales floor on a given day to keep carriers busy like it was before. You've probably never experienced carriers calling you, asking you for freight if you'd only been in the market during COVID, right? And I get that a lot, right? I talk to a lot of customers. That's my best part of my job is getting out and meeting with folks. And they're like, is it normal for a carrier to call me asking for loads? I'm like, yeah. What do you think happens when the market is in its dip? And they're like, what do you mean? The market's not always paying $3 a mile and I have 10 loads for every truck? Yeah. Like, no, it's not. It's not how it typically works.
I can't do the progressive name your price tool on everything. That's just not the way that it works. Yeah, man. Again, if you are truly that badass that we all think we were over these last couple of years, you're going to be just fine. And I think the sentiment that I've received from a lot of the people that I've talked to and a lot of the articles that I've done is a lot of shippers are rewarding the people who showed up and provided exceptional service and value over these last couple of years. They're the ones who are getting rewarded. And and again, I think the people who've been kicked out of networks, that answers your question of why. You clearly were not doing as good of a job as you thought you were, because I've never lost a customer because I had trucks showing up on time, my communication was flawless, and everything was in. I've never lost a customer for that. I lost a customer when I thought that I was above the freight, and when I started thinking, oh, they're lucky that I'm working with them and shit like that. That's when I found my way out the door. And I think if you're in that situation now, though, you guys, rest assured, you need to be hyper focused. This is why I'm all about niche-based selling. When you're starting over, when you're building anything, there is more opportunity out there than you can even fathom. You need to stop chasing markets, though. You need to get hyper focused in on specifics coming up here this next year, because I think that's what's going to help you succeed the most.
Yeah, and the market will. It will flush just like carriers that got in late and bought too expensive, paid too much for their truck and, aren't super insurable and don't have great business sense. They were one of the first to get flushed out when rates fell. These non-asset providers that don't have high attention to detail, don't have great relationship building skills, they'll get flushed out just the same through this. It'll be the ones that freight is especially in the spot market, is very much survival of the fittest, the way that it really should be, right? It's where supply meets demand, and that's a hairy edge most times, pretty much all the time since deregulation, right? There's been 2 periods where I've seen it really get totally out of whack at a national level, and that was ELDs and now COVID. So it'll be interesting, right? What does the next cycle look like? Is there an issue that we don't know about today that's going to whip the market into a frenzy? Because if you look at these cycles going back 10 to 15 years, the amplitude and the frequency have both been increasing of these spikes. So the peaks have been getting peakier, the dips have been getting lower. what if the next cycle is just normal? It'll look quite stark compared to the last 2 freight cycles, which were ELDs and COVID.
I think it'll be yet to see, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is you got to control your controllables, and you got to focus on making sure you're adding value to your customers every single day. Because again, in a hyper competitive market like we are, the margin for error is extremely low, and you will find yourself out of a book of business very quick if you take your eye off the prize because of anything right now.
Absolutely.
The competitive nature of the market that we're in right now, you guys, is normal. So anytime that I see this, it's a normal freight market. You guys fucking strap in and get ready, because the real players are just waiting in the wind right now. The real players are increasing their output to all of their prospects right now, because the likelihood of somebody failing is always there in this industry. I will rest everything on that, Ken, that the chances of somebody fucking up are very high every day. And there's people who are just waiting for that opportunity, because your margin for error is just not there anymore. You'll be out the network, and I'm going to be in their ear. And Unicron Logistics and the Mitch Wilberts of the world and everybody else out there, River City Logistics, those guys are in people's ears all the time because they know how these markets work. But that's it, man, for today. I guess somebody, Matt Fink dropped Lower LA, aka Lower Akron, was Roadway's headquarters.
Well, that's why whenever Roadway and Yellow merged, it was YRC, which a lot of ex-Roadway people would tell you was cry spelled in reverse.
Oh, that's funny. Mitch Wilbur says diversification is key for consistency. Don't be too top heavy in a certain industry or with your top tier 1 clients. When you're diversified, you ride the waves of the peaks and the valleys. You guys know how to find Ken. He's out there. If you guys want to find out more, reach out to him direct. But that's it for today, you guys. As always, if you guys see value in what we talk about, share the show. That's how this is going to continue to grow and get that out there, you guys, because if you see value in this, your network's going to see value in this as well. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, the Freight Coach Morning Show. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.